Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Iconic Wealth for Women podcast, where we share with you not only short-term cash flow, how to build short-term cash flow, but mainly how to build long-term wealth. And today we're talking all around the energy of money and why it holds so many of us back. And how it has such a, I hate this word, debilitating power. I knew I shouldn't have put that in the heading, debilitating power over so many of us. And we're going to be talking all around the energy and money today. I have an incredible guest with me today with Nicky Price. Nicky's a transformational therapist and a success mindset coach. And she loves to delve deep into the reasons behind why things happen. She transformed her life at the age of 50, which was incredible. And I watched her go through this journey. So it was really exciting to watch and see her come out the other side. But more importantly, find her real purpose and passion for helping people in relation to shifting their beliefs, digging into deep of what holds people back. And now she really helps clients peel back the layers of basically coping mechanisms, stories, things like limiting beliefs, so that they can really unleash their true power in their lives, whether that is creating a business that they absolutely love or just really getting through in relation to the life that they want to live. So really excited to have you here, Nicky. It's fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. So I want to start with a little bit of just tell us a little bit about that journey of how you kind of just transported yourself at the age of 50 in relation to finding your true purpose. Just tell us a little bit about background about yourself.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that kind of came quite late for me, 50. I think most people kind of hit this round about sort of late 30s, early 40s when they start to perhaps feel maybe life isn't giving them everything that they feel, they just kind of feel, is this it? Is this all I'm going to have? And then you sort of have these feelings of, well, I should just be grateful with what I've got because I've got a great life. I've got husband, family, dog, house, live in a nice area, and to the outside world, everything looks great. So what on earth do I have to be dissatisfied about? And there is that guilt there for feeling that as well. And so I ignored a lot of this for a long, long time. And I just have this real view that, you get these kind of little pokes from the universe every now and again that, come on, pay attention, something's not right. And maybe you start to get ill or something starts to, come up for you. And then if you don't listen, I just really think the universe just literally grabs you by the shoulders and gives you a damn good shaking. And that's exactly
that's the real kick then.
that is the come on, you are actually here to do something different. So I was 25 years in corporate IT. As I sort of went back part-time after having my children. And then once you have the children, it was really, I realized that IT just didn't tick all the boxes for me. And so I really didn't feel passionate about it. I did a bit of affiliate marketing, which is how I met you. And I dabbled in that for a while and then did fairly well for, a few years. But it still didn't really kind of give me the passion for what I wanted to do. And it was only when I had just a really horrible year of when I did become ill. And then it culminated in my dad dying and also my best friend dying, and, really kind of made me assess where I was in life and what was important, what values were important to me and why I was just feeling like I was. And somehow, after having a real sort of suffering from anxiety for the first time in my life about what to do, where to go, I just felt completely trapped in my own head, basically. And in the end, long story short, it just kind of the path when I decided to take that first step, which was, I just need to do something different. I need to shift this energy. And I just took the first step, made myself go out there. And it was such an effort. And then one thing, just kind of the path, it was almost kind of like the path just opened up in front of me. And before I knew it, I'd signed up to be a therapist. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? And I even came out then thinking
IT therapy.
I just kind of came out the end thinking, I didn't think I had a woo-woo bone in my body, but clearly I do. And actually this stuff, which is all science-backed, which I love, that aspect of it, being the logical person that I am, but I just love how this shifts people and, is able to really get people a better quality of life. And what a great job to do, right?
It's incredible, isn't it? And I mean, now obviously you've got so many stories of the people that you've helped, but tell us a little bit about kind of, you've obviously you come from the corporate background into basically doing therapy, which I love. I love the transition. And I think a lot of us have woo in us, but don't want to admit we do. It's really interesting, isn't it? You know, you always say to me, you're a bit more energetic than you like to think you are because I'm a logical strategist. What was that transition like? Just share us a little bit about, because obviously lots of entrepreneurs listening here, you know, sometimes they're thinking about, they've got these ideas bubbling. What was it like to take that step, to do something completely different? What sort of things did you come up against?
Yeah, scary. I'm not going to lie. It was, yeah, it was scary. And I think if you are about, but here's the thing. I just feel when something is right, and when you think something is not right in what you're doing, trust that feeling. And this is where the woo-woo, if you like, but it's just energy. What we're feeling is energy, because when you look at us under a microscope, right, as powerful as possible, we are just vibrating masses of energy. There is more energy in us than there is solid mass. And yet all our problems, knowing that we are energy, that we attract things to us with energy, yet we try and fix our problems in the mass in our head. And we should be trying to fix them energetically and understanding how energy works. And I read The Law of Attraction, I watched The Secret. It missed so many pieces for me, because I think everybody was going, oh, if I just think about something, I can manifest it into my life. Sadly, it's not quite that simple. However, the theory is there, and I played with that, and occasionally I'd get something to manifest that I wanted rather than the stuff that I didn't want, because we're actually manifesting all the time. It's just whether we're manifesting consciously and manifesting what we want. But very quickly I kind of learned that sometimes when you think about something and you really want something, what I didn't realize, and I learned this through the therapy and more the coaching that I've done more recently, is very much that when you want something and you're going for something, you're moving into a different energy, and therefore everything that's in the way of that is going to come up for you. So it feels like you're just going after barrier after barrier after barrier that is just coming up. And that's why most people give up. You know, they have a passion for doing something, they want to start their business, and then they see all these things coming up telling them exactly why they're not worthy, they're not good enough, why, you know, all these old feelings that we store within inside us. When you're setting your own business up, the whole onus is on you. And therefore, all of those insecurities just kind of come rushing to the surface. But that being said, all it is a shift in perspective of, okay, I just need to clear this to get to the next one, rather than think, oh, it's a roadblock, I shouldn't be doing this, I'm just trusting, you know, this is obviously not right because it shouldn't be this hard. And that's why most people give up. So it is, I think, for me, and probably for you, I think it is true as well, because we've known each other a long time, is just pure resilience in those early kind of years, if you like, you know, of getting started in a business, because it is going to be a roller coaster. But it is so worth it, because you're growing so much. And I think if we see that journey as growth rather than as roadblocks all the time that are there to stop us, then it is just that shift in perspective that makes things a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think we quite often say that the entrepreneurial journey is your personal development journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all hide away in our jobs, and suddenly when you start your own new business, you're like, oh wow, I've got to learn about me a lot more. So I think that's really fascinating. And I think, like you said, and that's where, you know, I know you dive into the subconscious, is like it just wants to protect you and keep you safe, doesn't it? So when you're trying anything new, you're always going to come against these roadblocks. So let's talk about some of these beliefs that come up in relation to the things that do hold us back. You mention a lot in relation to beliefs relating back to your childhood. Tell us a bit about why that is. What is the kind of the background behind how a lot of our beliefs that we have now are formed back in our childhood?
Yeah, sure. So what most people don't really realize is that 0 to 7 years old is actually a very, very important development stage for us, because we actually are missing a part of the brain at that point that hasn't fully developed, and that is our critical analysis. And so age 0 to 7, when you look at how children play, you can see they're very imaginative, they're very creative, they can spend hours pretending to be something. They will laugh at the same things over and over. They love repetition, but they don't care about what they look like. Black and white children looking at each other think they look the same. They think they're twins just because they like the same things. They don't look at themselves in the mirror and say, God, does my bum look big, big snappy? They don't care. When they're putting food in their mouth, they don't care. So they love themselves. So they don't have any of these inhibitions. However, what they do have is primal needs. And primal needs are those ones that we must feel like we fit in. We must connect and bond with our parents. We must have this feeling of safety in our body. And safety is such a huge one, because if no parent can look after their child well enough to not have traumatized their child at least once in their life. And
some more than others, but yes.
Maybe I'm just trying to make myself feel better. But I did lose my son one time, which was
but so it happens though, doesn't it? In reality, that happens. I remember my mum telling me a story about my brother one day where she chucked him on the bed and thought that was safe, and he bounced off the other side just as Dad walked in and caught him before he hit the wall. And that's timing, and it wasn't anything deliberate. It's just like she just popped on the bed because he was annoying her. So yeah, things happen, don't they? You can traumatize kids very easily. So yeah, tell us, what's the impact of that though, even when we love them and we don't realize that that's actually what we're doing?
Absolutely. Because the impact really is that those years, we're actually in a different brainwave for those 0 to 7 years. We're actually in kind of like hypnosis, like a hypnotic trance we're in for most of the time. But what we are in programming years. And so that child is looking around at everything that's going on. They're not analyzing, they're looking to fit in. So they're not, when their parent comes home and the kid does something, really funny that made them laugh the previous day, but then the next day they get this completely different volatile reaction because the parent's tired, a bit grumpy. They don't look at that and say, oh, well, Dad must be tired. I'll just, I won't worry about that today. No, they think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I need to adapt my behavior, because that child's primal need, they may not even be able to talk yet. So they don't communicate in language, they communicate in energy, and they're sensing the energy. So even when a parent comes in and says, no, everything's fine, that child will know absolutely energetically that there is something that's not fine, but they instinctively blame themselves. To them, their parents are like the God thing. They must connect with them. They are perfect in their eyes. And so that child must connect. And so they automatically assume that whatever reason they're not getting their needs met in that moment, that it must be their fault. And so they need to adapt their behavior, or they learn to suppress things. They learn to suppress their feelings because they're told. You think about how many times we're told, don't shout, don't get angry, don't cry, be a big boy, be a big girl. And we're always just taught instinctively to just suppress our feelings. But the moment we start to do that, it causes this energy. Our emotions are simply energy in motion, and they get trapped in our body. And so we make these feelings and beliefs about ourselves based on what is going on around us at the time. So we make our beliefs about money, we make our beliefs about relationships, we make our belief about how we need to behave and show up and what is acceptable. Is it okay to be me? And most of us assume that actually it's not. It's not okay to be me, so I need to adapt my behavior. And it's only when you get to your sort of 30s or 40s, your authentic self is almost crying out loud to come through, to say, no, this is who I am, not this person that you've been your whole life that was expected of you to go to school, to go to college, to go and get your degree, to go and have a good job, to get married, to have children. All of a sudden you get to that middle age, if you like, anywhere between 30s and 50s, I like to call that middle age.
I'm still middle-aged, totally.
I'm old. And yeah, you get to that feeling, but it's almost like your soul is coming through and saying, no, this is not what you're here for. You're here to be doing something else, and you need to be following your purpose. And then all of a sudden all this stuff comes up to tell you why, because all these experiences that you've had are sort of saying, no, perhaps I better not do that. Who am I to do that? I'm just an imposter. And and we forget who we were born to be. And that's the key. When we look back to our childhood, look at the 2-year-olds, the 1-year-olds. They're the ones that can give you a good indication of who you're supposed to be. They love everything. They want to do everything. They're curious about everything. And we just get all this awful conditioning that, no, that's not who we are. You're not allowed to be that. Who are we to do that? That's all right for them, but it's not all right for us. And all this conditioning just kind of builds up like layers around our heart. And we just forget who we are. These experiences.
And then so your role is to uncover them, because I've been through some of that.
Absolutely.
Peeling the layers of the onion that come off over and over in time. But again, it's interesting. So what are some of the most common sort of beliefs that you hear? I know there's some single threads in there, which a lot of us have in relation to the beliefs or the things that hold us back in relation to it. So you mentioned one before around imposter syndrome. People have labeled that and we hear it all the time. But what is the general things that you see and you notice the most in relation, especially in women in business or women growing their wealth? Like, obviously, that's who we tune into. If they want to go out there and create the impact that they really want to create, what do you notice the most that comes up?
I think, that there's definitely a sort of, I've narrowed it down to about, but there's between sort of 6 and 10, but the top 6 I would say that come up into my practice for sure are things like definitely imposter syndrome. That's a big one. Visibility fears, getting yourself out there and being visible. So getting, doing presentations, going on videos, doing that kind of thing. Women suddenly sort of have this real, oh no, I just want people to find me. I don't want to have to do that, put myself out there. That's a big one for women. Money blocks for sure, and I'll talk about that in just a moment because that's obviously of interest. Overworking, being the hustler all the time, really kind of
hyperachiever, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. The hyperachiever, overworking, and overworking. Sometimes feeling not seen as well. That everything they do, they're putting themselves out there, but they just don't feel like they're being seen. It's almost like they're invisible, and that's there's definitely some good stuff behind that. Procrastination and perfectionism, 2 big ones as well, and of course confidence and just general fear about oh no, I don't want to do that. And I think you have said, and very rightly so, there's a difference between a genuine fear and limiting belief about doing something compared to just having to push yourself out of your comfort zone, feel the fear and do it anyway. Because there's a different energy about that. If you're still sort of thinking, oh yeah, I've never done that before, but hey, what the hell? That's a good energy, But if you've got the energy of the belief that I should never be seen, because it was dangerous, perhaps in childhood, it's better, it's safer to stay small. I can't bond with these parents, so I must just be good and stay out of their way. That's so common, by the way. To then try and put yourself out there, your mind will say no. You'll find you'll get sore throats, things will happen, and you won't be able to get yourself out there. And when you do, you'll mess it up, you'll stutter, and your mind will say, see, we never want to do that again.
Yeah.
So yeah,
you see that a lot with people putting out books, don't they? It's one of the biggest things with books is a lot of people lose their voice because they're suddenly sharing their story, they're suddenly getting their message out there. And I love that because obviously we know the energy then connects with your body, doesn't it? And then your body tells you generally what's going on. Nicky reads me quite often. If something's going on in my life, she'll go, what does that mean, Kylie? So I'm used to being read now. I'm like, if I've got a sign or an ache or something going on, it's normally because of something that's festering in the background. So I really love that. And I think you've touched on a couple of really big ones there. I think visibility for me is one I hear all the time with women. It's like, what if I put myself out there? What if I do this and it doesn't work? What will people think of me? Comparing myself to others is a massive one I hear all the time. So I really, really love that. But let's dive into the money stuff, because obviously we are here to talk about wealth. We want to talk more about money. That's what this show is all about, is to embrace the kind of, it's okay okay to either want it or not want it as well. We know in our space we get a lot of jargon where a lot of people go, oh, you have to want to earn 7 figures and things like that. And it's like, actually, you don't. But also we want to stretch you. We want to get you thinking about what impact could you make if you do earn a bit more money. I was doing some living goals with someone the other day, and I sort of said to her, I said, yeah, but what's your lifestyle goals? But what if you could make an impact with one of those lifestyle goals? What would that look like? What if you just had the extra money to do something really different that you may not have thought about yet? So let's talk about more around the energy of money in relation to kind of what holds people back around money.
Yeah, and it's and the energy around money is incredible, really, because we put so much focus on it. We put so much weight of responsibility, if you like, on money, and we think that when we have this amount of money, whatever it is that we're going for, that suddenly all of these things in our life are suddenly going to get better.
Oh, what they're not. Darn.
You go and survey a load of millionaires, billionaires, whatever, they have the same problems.
Yeah.
And so, I've been working in the past with a couple of directors of companies, male directors of companies, who had worked their way all the way to the top thinking, yes, this is what I want. I want to earn this amount of money. Then I'll feel like I've really, achieved something. And they get all the way to the top of their field and they don't feel any different. Yes, they've got the money. Yes, they've got the flash car. Yes, they've got the big mortgage, the wife who goes and spends all the money for them. And they are still not feeling good inside. So what is it about the energy of money? It's, if you think about how we behave around money, and the energy that we have around money is, again, very much to how we were brought up, what our parents said about money, how did mum and dad react around money, what was their behavior around money. But also look at your own patterns and behaviors around money. How do you feel when you pay out money as well as receive money? It's really interesting because the root cause really of most of the money blocks are to do with our self-worth, what we believe we are able to achieve. And so therefore, if you do get to a millionaire, you obviously do believe you can achieve that, but it doesn't mean that perhaps you feel something else, like I don't feel enough inside. I'm filling a void by pushing. And I heard a top, one of my mentors say that if you go to any Olympic sportsman or any hugely successful person, like billionaire status, there's something driving them where they don't feel enough. And I thought that was really interesting. So you can have this passion, but perhaps that passion was not driven from your passion, it was driven from somebody else's. I do believe that you do have your own passion to do something, because a lot of those aren't driven by money for sports, but there's something else that's missing there. Perhaps they couldn't connect in certain ways at school. So there's always something there that drives our pattern behavior. There's always something that we look at. But to think that money is going to solve everything, and you might say, yeah, but it's going to bring me safety. For somebody who's not earning enough to pay their bills, the first thing they want to feel is safe. But when that money appears, they're still not going to feel safe. That feeling of not safe comes from inside. And so the safety in your body, and I've said this for a while now, that there's only really 2 things that you need your entire life to have the best life. Number 1 is safety in your body, because when we don't feel safe, energetically, we're not able to use our heart to bring in what we want, because we're stuck in that kind of fight flight response. We're feeling the experience of something's going to happen all the time, something's driving me. We're just on this alert, and it actually switches off. When you're in this fight and flight, you kind of switch off other systems like the digestive system. So very often anxious people very often have gut related problems too. But in terms of money, feeling that feeling of safety, they need to be separated. The feeling of money and the energy of money is actually the energy of abundance. So the way to get into that feeling of abundance, go out in nature, go and look at all the trees, go and look at the grass, go and look at the birds in the sky, and just look at the abundance that's in the world. When you go to the tap, we're fortunate enough to be able to have a whole cup of water without even thinking about it. But if we get to the end of it, we wouldn't say, oh, mustn't drink that amount, because there's no more. We just know that there's abundance. And so to move that across to money and have that same energy and know that there's millions out there. There's millions and millions of pounds out there. And the stupid part about it is we don't even really see money any day, this time anymore. No. We just tap. We tap a piece of plastic or we tap our phone. And so it's an illusion, the whole energy and the physicality of money is just not there. So when you look at it as an energy of money, you have to understand the flow. As with everything, we breathe in, we must breathe out. The flow of money, the flow of love, everything is reciprocal in the universe. And so money has to flow. So if you are holding on to the money as soon as you get it, thinking, oh God, I've got to pay all these bills, and you need to send the money out with the same energy that you're bringing in. Yay, I've just received that. Great. Oh, yay, I'm going to pay that bill because that keeps me warm. That pays for my electricity, which enables me to see in my house. This pays for my water, which means I can go and get water anytime I want. But most of us are like, oh, another bill.
Yeah.
Just feel how that energy just drops when we feel that, oh my God, I've got to do that. And so, our whole life, we learn for sure from our parents. So if your parents hold on to money all the time, then you're likely to do the same thing. But you can change. And I think that's the most important thing. Anybody can change any limiting belief. We just dissolve it. We get to the root cause and understand that, it is, most people think that it is the experiences they've had that make them believe something. So, oh, well, look what's happened to me. I've lost this, I've lost that. Everything I truly want, I lose. It just goes from me. But that's kind of the cause and effect model, we call it. That's the cause of this happening. And, that's why I feel like I feel. But actually, isn't it better to look at the beliefs you created first are what has caused your experiences? And wow, look what you've created. Look back at what you've created from those thoughts. So if you don't like what you've created, it's time to change the thoughts and change those beliefs. And that's the way forward. So all I do is I show my clients what their beliefs are, because your mind knows. Your mind knows exactly. It's not doing it deliberately, trying to put all these barriers up for you. It's showing you what you believe and what you need to work through and what you need to be free from if you want to move forwards. So by the time my clients have come to me, they've usually tried a lot. They've been trying to manifest. They've been trying to do a lot. They've been trying to work through anxiety, because it's so misunderstood, that everything is just so misunderstood by the hell. Your body can heal itself when it knows. There's so many emotions that get stuck in the body, and you really can just work through those just by getting to the root cause of things. So
I think that's lovely, and that feeds nicely into the kind of the next area in relation to obviously we have all these beliefs that, like you said, we've generated. Generally, it's like you said, it's how we interpret something that's happened in our lives and how we go on and carry that forward with us, and the emotions behind that we carry forward. But if you're looking to shift, so obviously one of the big things we talk about is your identity. So it's interesting when you were talking about the seniors, the corporates, because obviously a lot of the time your positioning, everything is tied up in your identity, isn't it? And suddenly you get there and then you're like, now what? I was talking to a really lovely lady last night who has fought so hard to look after her daughter. She went through a really messy, abusive relationship, and then literally a year later he died, and she was looking after herself and her daughter and doing everything, fighting, and now they're out the other side and her daughter's off to doing other things, and she's really excited. Now she's like sitting there going, who am I anymore? I don't know who I am anymore. So she's got to explore and find herself now. So how does it work around identity and the stories we tell ourselves and the things that kind of hold us back in relation to how do we shift that if we're looking for a change or we're looking to really create something in our lives?
You just change it. You decide
just like
that's
that.
for me. No, of course.
Just decide.
That's it.
I'm going to be a gym bunny tomorrow.
And
I've just decided.
That's it.
Yeah.
And in fact, it is. However, of course, that's not practical to share with any of them, but it's understanding what our identity is, you know. So to get an idea of who you believe you are, just start a journal prompt with, you know, I believe this about me. I'm the type of person who, you know, so who am I? And then you'll see probably a load of limiting beliefs that start to come out. You know, I'm the type of person who, well, I always get this wrong. So I'm good at this, but I'm not so good at this. But our identity really is just a collection of beliefs about ourselves. But if you go back to what I was saying earlier, 0 to 7 years, you're told who you are. No, you're not very good at that. So, you know, do this. Or at school, even if you're not told it directly, you kind of get the idea of what you're not very good at. And unfortunately, with the education system, don't start me on that one. However, the education system is very bad at sort of, well, you're good, therefore you can go all the way sort of thing. You're not so good, you know, you're going to have to go off and do something that doesn't use your brain, or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Instead of really
in the Dumpty class when we were kids, it was like,
exactly.
Yeah, terrible.
Kids
because they
know
do
not that. So they immediately kind of think, oh, firstly, well, mum's praising me when I've done well. So if you are the golden child and you do well, then your value as a person gets linked to how you achieve. So you automatically want to carry that on, because that's how you feel that your value is represented out in the world. This is who I am. So I am somebody who achieves all the time. And that, but the danger of that is you then only link how you feel to being, you know, you only feel of value when you are achieving. So that's fine while you are achieving, but then perhaps you stop work to have a baby or something, then you go back to a much more menial job and you suddenly think, oh, I'm not achieving so much here. And you don't understand why you suddenly start to not feel so good. So that's just one example. But, you know, we can just build this identity based on whether we were a naughty child. You know, if mum and dad were too busy to play with us all the time, maybe we played up because we wanted to get attention. So we were known as the naughty child, the rebel, or the one that, you know, let the family down, or, you know, what would the neighbours think? All of this thing was, you know, kind of impressed upon us. You know, how your mum and dad reacted if a Rolls Royce was to pull up next to you at the traffic lights. You know, what would they say? Oh, look at that smoke bugger, you know, or, oh, wow, look at that car. You know, how your parents reacted around money, and how, you know, you believe that you're entitled to based on what you're seeing and what you're experiencing in your life, all creates this identity. So your identity is, you know, who you think you are. But actually, when you really look at that, are they your beliefs, you know, or are they your parents kind of, and teachers and peers, and, you know, all the people that have influenced you in any sort of shape or way, and also the experiences that have happened to you, you suddenly find out whether you are good. I think it was Tony Robbins that spoke about once, when the 9/11 happened, he happened to be in a big conference room and they were watching it unfold. He said that he, from his perspective, was watching the reactions of people, which is all down to who kind of you believe you are. So some people were screaming, some people were just frozen, some people were crying, and yet they were all witnessing the same thing. And I think that's the other key, is to really understand perspective. You're only looking at about 1% of the whole world that's going on. You know, sorry, 1% of a scene that's happening right in front of you is only about 1% going in, which means there's 99 other percents of other perspectives and other views of that same scene. It's why the police always have such a terrible time trying to get a written record of you know, what happened.
Witness statements, because they're always different, aren't they? Yeah.
And also just you trying to remember a scene back, if your friend was there at the same time 20 years ago, she's probably going to remember something completely different to what you remember. So it's understanding that your perspective of who you are could be fatally flawed, and is very likely to be fatally flawed. And so really it's about, who do you want to be? Who do you kind of, you know, genuinely, who do you want to be for you? Then put that down and start looking at that. And it is just about shifting those beliefs, because you might suddenly say, oh, well, I want to be a millionaire. Yeah, but do you want to be a millionaire, or do you want to have something. What is that going to do for you? Is it going to buy you a house? It's going to make you what? Feel safe. Okay, we're back to the safety thing. You don't feel safe. And so when we look and dig right beneath an awful lot of the beliefs that are sitting behind everything, fear, anger, and sadness are really, people with anxiety, they have fear. People with depression, they have sadness. It's that sadness and those limiting beliefs and limiting emotions that are driving parts of us. And when we get rid of those, we suddenly sort of feel so much more creative, and we can move towards who we really want to be. So look deep at what you think you really want, because there's something there that's driving that. Because most of us really just want to be happy. And if we can travel and see beautiful sights, if we can be with people that we can totally connect with, we're happy. And yeah, you might want to fly on a private jet or have a fast car because of the experience makes you feel good. But if you're doing that because you want next door to go, wow, what a nice car, and big you up a little bit, then you're doing all that for the wrong reason. But if you genuinely love the feel of the leather or whatever it is in that car and driving it, that's the one to go for. Yeah, do it. Why not? So it's just finding what you're truly passionate about and what really lights you up. And that's just really your values. And you can go and Google, core values, and just go through them, pick 5, and they're your core values. Pick 20 to start with and then narrow it down to 5, and you'll see what really drives you as a person, because we are all different. We all like different things. It would be very boring if we didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love that.
change.
Yeah, no, it's really, 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 really important. It's interesting you talk about 9/11. I was at the airport at 9/11 coming back from Australia. I was in the Singapore airport, and it hit all the big screens across, and we're all standing there going, oh, do we get on a plane or don't we? It was fascinating. But like you said, the reactions were interesting, because like you said, some were like, no, I'm not getting on that plane, never, no way in the world. Others were, like you said, crying. Some of us were like, well, let's just go. Once it's happened, we'll be fine, which was kind of my attitude. I was just like, well, it's meant to be, it will be. But it was really interesting, like you said, watching those different reactions when such a tragic event happened. I think it's really interesting, and it's like you said, it's really interesting looking at our identities and going from there. So what are some of the practical things? So we've talked about journaling, and I love some of those open questions. So I believe I am. I've read it down. I can't read my writing. I am the type of person that blah blah blah. Really, really powerful question. What else? What's a couple of practical tips? So we've been kind of talking about, our limiting beliefs, how we can step into this identity if we want to, how we can choose to be who we want to be. So what are some of the practical things that we could actually be doing if we're maybe a bit stuck, or we're just not sure where our direction is? And how do we get started?
Yeah. So the first thing, the first part of any sort of transformation is awareness. So it's awareness of this pattern of behavior that you might be experiencing. So if you notice perhaps in your relationships, you always seem to attract, they might be totally different characters, but you always seem to attract emotionally unavailable men or women. Or in your money patterns, maybe as fast as money comes in, it always seems to go out again. And I know we've both suffered from that in the past.
I was going to say,
totally.
It's one I'm definitely still working through. It's interesting. I know how to make it now, but it still goes out.
Exactly. And so it's looking for the patterns. And when you see that there's a pattern, I really want you to look at the perspective that I'd mentioned earlier, that you think, oh, these patterns are happening, and therefore I think this about me. So I've noticed this pattern, and that must mean about me that I'm useless with money, or I'm rubbish in my relationships. And, there's something about me that puts people off, that I can't have the relationship that I want. But actually, I want you to dig deeper, shift that perspective from thinking what you're thinking because of the experience. And I want you to think, I have created this experience because of what I think. And that can be a tough one, to think that perhaps you might have wasted a lot of your life with relationships that were all there to teach you what you needed to learn about yourself. Because one of the strongest human forces known to man in our race is that our mind must act in accordance with our beliefs. Okay, so if all your life is played out, you are acting in accordance with your beliefs. So if you don't like what's in your life at the moment, look at what's not going right for you and look at the patterns, because underneath those patterns, there is a belief. And there's a belief that, I was listening to something the other day, and there was a woman on there who she just said, everything in my life has just gone. I've had such a sad life. She'd lost a child. She'd lost her parents. She'd lost a lot of money. People were, and when it drilled back to it, it was, her mum had given her up at birth. And so she'd had this deep feeling from birth, and she just made that belief in that moment that I've lost my mum, and therefore this is who I am. I can't hold on to anything that is the most important things in my life. I can't hold on to them. And so all her experiences in her life mapped that belief. And that's such a sad one, but it's just to show you the power of those beliefs that we created very early on. Now, of course, you can change it. Look at Oprah Winfrey. She had a terrible upbringing, and she's been able to totally transform her life.
Yeah.
And neuroplasticity shows us that we can do this. So the first step is awareness. Bring it into your conscious mind so that you notice the patterns. But then you're going to notice how you react. So it is these negative reactions. So if you're prone to getting angry, if you're prone to withdrawing and being really sad, what are your reactions? Because they're the default that are coming from your subconscious mind. And very often they're not the cause, they're the protectors that are kind of putting their arms around it, going, no, don't come near the real pain, so I'm going to get angry. And that pushes you away from going to the real pain. Because as a child, the thought that they might not be lovable, they might not be enough, they might not be worthy is too painful to deal with. And so the mind shuts it away in the same way it does in your body. If you get too much pain, you pass out. And so it does it the same in the mind, but it creates these protectors. It builds some walls around your heart. You get hurt so much as a child, you're going to build walls upon walls upon walls around your heart, and they need knocking down. And we do that. You can do this work yourself, but I think you don't get into trauma yourself. You're traumatized by somebody or a circumstance that's made you feel something. And therefore, because you don't go into the trauma on your own, it's much more helpful to have somebody to help you through the trauma and out the other side, and to create that safety. There's different opinions on this, but I still feel that you have to understand it in order to be free of it. Some people say you can bypass it. It's trauma that's trapped in the body. Unless you're releasing that trauma from the body, it's not going to work. So it's breathing in. Once you start to get familiar with how your body works, so it doesn't have to be meditation. You and I both know we've been doing these sort of PQ reps, haven't we? Building a positive quotient of part of the mind. Yeah. And what that does is it's bringing awareness. So if you feel yourself reacting really badly, maybe angrily to things, and that is your default go-to, getting really angry, then try and stop, notice that pattern, but then go into it. Just take the focus away, rub your fingers, do something, close your eyes, just understand where you're feeling that in your body, because the clues are there, and feelings are designed to be felt. They need to come up, and all we do is push them down over and over again. We say, no, I don't want to feel like this. This is horrible. So I'm going to go and change and do something different. All you're doing is pushing it back down again. It needs to come up. It needs to be felt. Our emotions are there to be felt. And once you can release them, there's a method called the Sedona method, which goes through that process quite nicely, but it is just sitting with the feeling and letting it go through your body. If you're in a car accident or something, not a car accident, but if somebody jumps out in the road in front of you, your instinct would go, heartbeat goes up, tension rise, everything happens, and then they're okay. You drive on, and you still think, oh, wow, that was a close thing. And then in probably about 90 seconds, couple of minutes, everything has calmed down again, because that feeling has left your body. And that's all you need to do. So when you feel the feeling surfacing, going, I'm about to react, just think, oh, okay, just let that out, because that is covering what the real problem is. And then slowly, the real problem will start to come to you. And so that's the way to kind of work through it. But it's more helpful to do it. If it is something deep and it's a over and over pattern, it's better to do that sort of work with
It's like you said, if it's just small limiting belief that you just don't believe you can jump onto something or do something specific, you can generally work through that. But like you said, with
just like you.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes you just got to feel the fear and do it anyway. It's like you said, is it a true depth thing, or is it something really going on, or is it just an excuse not to do something? I think there's, like you said, there's definitely different levels. And I, after being through the experience of it and coming out the other side and do different things that I always challenge myself for. I love therapy. So everyone, like, there's used to be such a stigma around therapy, didn't there? Especially in like our space, in the corporate space, a long time ago. It's like even you even mentioned it, you were like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" And don't talk to that person. They're getting therapy. But for me, truly, it's it's created the life that I wanted to create. It's helped me to do the things that I want to do in a way that benefits and serves other people. And so I think that, like you said, and I don't think you can go deep and do it yourself. I really don't. I'm a true believer in the fact that it's like anything, it's like you said, why do you have a coach? Why do you have a business strategy? Why does a basketballer have a basketball coach? Because they need to see things that you can't see, or they need to uncover things that you can't discover. And quite often it's very, very hard to see it in ourselves. And I think that's the same with therapy. It's like you don't really know what's going on until you let someone else help you uncover it. And quite often what we think we want to cover doesn't come into that at all, does it? I've learned that quite a few times. Gone and think, I just want to sort this problem out, and it's like nothing to do with that, which I think is the most fascinating part of when you go deep into your subconscious. So I really, really love that. I think that wow, I think we're nearly at an hour already. It's gone really, really quick. And I think that the exploring the energy around money is fascinating. And I think that it is, like you said, it's an energy. For me, it's interesting. I find it's a resource. I find it fascinating how much we hang on to money, and like you said, the expectation around things when it's just a piece of paper. It's like, it is fascinating when you logically think about it. And now, like you said, it's not even that, it's just a bit of plastic on a card, and yet it holds so much power over how we behave, what we do, how we interact with relationships, everything. Like, fascinating experience of what we've created in our lives, in that all revolves around money. So tell us about what's going on in your life at the moment, Nicky. What have you got to kind of share with us if we want to get to know what you do a bit more? How can people kind of dive a bit deeper with you in relation to working through these sorts of things?
Thank you. So yes, obviously I do my one-on-one sessions. So for anybody who is really stuck in a pattern of behavior and wants help, then obviously get in touch. We can definitely have a chat about that. I do have my signature program, which is really designed for business women or entrepreneurial women who are facing the exact same things that both you and I have faced, all the way through our business. And just even hitting, I had a lady the other day, she's stuck. She said, I've got money blocks. And I thought, oh, okay, right. But she was stuck at the 7-figure level, and that's always, she's ahead of me, but I know I can still help her because it's a block. It doesn't matter where you are. So, you could be stuck right at the bottom saying, oh, I only seem to earn just enough. Or you could be stuck at a certain level where your mind has said, right, no, this is all you're worthy of. You can't go any further than that. And so, a block is a block. As we move forwards, we're going to hit new blocks and new perspectives. So I help anyone one-on-one with that. But I also have this program. So it's like a container where we work together for 6 months, and we work through pretty much all the limiting beliefs. And of course, then you get coached on exactly how you can do this work yourself, so that you're then able to, it is totally transformational. It's a 6-month totally transformational program. But just lately I'm doing some workshops, which are all set for sort of getting us set for 2024. So looking at the sort of things like money blocks, some mindset shifts. So 5 mindset shifts that you can really shift your whole perspective, and it will change the way you show up. And the minute you change that energy and how you show up, then you'll notice shifts and transformations will start to happen. So I'm doing a few of those workshops, so they can do that under the 2024 link. So that's
brilliant. Yeah, we'll make sure there's a link around this podcast video wherever you're watching it. There'll be a link to that, and I love it. It's mindset reset for 2024. But even if you're listening to this in next year, like, it will help you reset wherever you are. So even if you're catching up on this later on down the track and you're watching and you're hearing this, do jump in. I'm sure she'll be running another one at some stage as well, because the good thing about these resets is it really helps you, like you said, raise your awareness. It makes you understand what things that are going on that are holding you potentially back. And I'm sure there's always going to be a replay available as well. So make sure you grab those links. Connect, like I said, with Nicky. There's, like I said, links around this video or audio, depending where you're listening in onto the podcast. So make sure you do connect with her, have a conversation. And Nicky, have you got any kind of parting sort of like, if we want to go and make a bigger impact, or we want to grow our lives and change, have you got any sort of parting words or anything else that you want to add in relation to where women are at the moment on their journey, and what's kind of maybe even going on in the world at the moment that you notice?
And that's a really good point, because I think things are very difficult for a lot of people right now. And unfortunately, this is the conditioning and the energy that we're all kind of sinking into. So it sounds very woo-woo, but I think when you take the sort of the 30,000 foot perspective and understand we are all connected to, it's called prana energy or cosmic energy, whatever you want to believe. It's what makes our bodies work. And we all get the same energy. And it's what we do with that energy in our body that denotes what we get in our life. So every single person has the same opportunity. So understanding that just in itself, dream big. Most people, when you speak to them, and I ask them, can you tell me a happy scene? Can you tell me what you want? Those are the two most difficult things for people to answer on my form that I ask them to fill out. And I just encourage you to really sit down. We're too busy doing. We're human beings. We're not human doings. We should be being, and
I don't know.
thinking about and thinking about what we want, and then thinking, and who do I need to be to get that? So if it's more money, if it's a different job, what needs to change? Because if you think the same thoughts and you think the same feelings, which most of us do for 95% of the day on autopilot from our subconscious mind, it rules the day. Saves energy, our minds love it, but you don't move, you stay the same. So if you don't want 2024 to be like 2023, then you need to start with the thoughts and awareness and knowing what you want. Give your mind some direction of where you want to go. If it's your business, go and message Kylie and get your strategy sorted out. If it's mindset, and you know that you're not quite there, then get some help with changing those patterns if you know that you're just stuck in this role, because until you do, everything's going to stay the same. So we need to change the thoughts and change the beliefs.
And I love that. And it's really interesting because you just mentioned something around focus. It's like you said, it is the hardest thing. Whenever you ask someone what do they want, they'll always tell you what they don't want, don't they? They never focus on what they actually want. Yeah.
The lack of something in their life.
That's
what you
it.
Focus to, you give energy to.
Yeah.
What you give energy to grows. So if you're wanting more money and you're looking at your bank account going, I want this, I'm doing all my affirmations, I'm getting all this, but I've still got nothing in my bank, then immediately that cancels out all the positivity because you're focusing on the lack. So it just brings you straight back down to lack and scarcity instead of abundance. So it's getting that energy right. Be careful.
So let's shift our energy, shift our focus, get out with nature more, which I know is my big thing. It's terrible. I need to get out in nature more. But it does. It is interesting though, because it does, like you said, it opens up to abundance. When you really look at the world and the planet and everything that we have around us, we do live in an incredible place. And it does give you that sense of abundance and sense of feeling. So it's like you said, gratitude's a big one for me. Always be grateful. Like you said, if you get money coming in to pay a bill, be grateful it's come in. I always do a gratitude practice in the evening. And I just think that is one of the biggest things that's kind of helped me. It's always the little things that you're grateful for turn into bigger things that happen in your life. So really, really love it. Thank you so much for your time today, Nicky. It's been invaluable talking about all the beliefs, how we tell each other stories, the stories that hold us back, and how we can really shift into that identity. I was talking to my clients the other night around, who do you want to become? What habits do you need to get next year? What do you need to change in your life to create the life that you really want to create? And you've kind of summed up the things that really hold people back and how you can uncover those. So thank you for your time. I know you're hugely busy, so I really, really appreciate you taking the time to join us on this podcast. And like I said, do connect with Nicky. She's an incredible therapist, a huge success mind coach, and she will get you to where you want to go if you need that extra boost and extra shift in relation to where you want to go next. So thank you very much, Nicky. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.